podcast.
All right. Here we are.
Hey.
This is the Voice of Electronic Music podcast, episode number 26 with Alex Diaz.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it with an S, right?
With an S.
Do you say it like Diaz or is it Diaz?
I know I say it Diaz.
Diaz, yeah.
It's Portuguese. It gets
nice.
spelled wrong all the time.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I always have to correct people.
That's cool. Yeah, I've known a few Portuguese people. Well, cool, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, for sure.
And,
Happy to be here.
Yeah. This is, I got to say, well, first of all, we're here at Halcyon in San Francisco on 11th Street. And my buddy actually pointed out that this is, we just today reached 1,000 downloads on the audio stream.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a milestone.
Yeah,
Congratulations
right?
on that.
Yeah, thanks.
That's dope.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good round number, you know?
Yeah. That's a big deal.
I think we surpassed that a long time ago on YouTube, but on the audio side of things, like that's because I feel like YouTube has a really good kind of algorithm for people just like stumbling across stuff and finding stuff.
For sure.
But audio stuff, it's like you kind of gotta point.
You have to dig.
You gotta dig.
Yeah, you definitely have to dig.
Point people there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For sure.
Here, let me scoot that down just a little bit there.
Yeah, short.
Yeah. All right. There we go. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, so yeah, I wanted to ask you about all these things that you're into. I had to. You have so many of them. I had to write them down. So you are currently a content manager at Dubset Media.
Yes.
Is that, yeah. Okay. And then writer at Insomniac Events. I know you said that you kind of stopped writing for them a couple months ago.
Yeah. But I was doing that for about 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a good run.
That's awesome.
Good run there.
And then breaks editor at Magnetic Magazine.
Yes, I still write for Magnetic. More of I write about whatever randomly, so I'm like a staff writer now.
Nice.
So basically, a lot of the stuff that I do is interviews. I do premieres now and then, but my real passion is doing interviews when I do journalism stuff.
Nice.
So most recent interview was with This Ain't Bristol's a label manager.
Oh, sick.
Maximono.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
Kyle
Watson.
Oh,
nice.
I did an interview with him just recently
sick.
with this remix album that just came out.
Oh, sick, dude.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Kyle Watson's stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like half the stuff he puts out, I'm just like, other half, I'm like, that's really well done. But a lot of it is like mind-blowing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then A&R at Punk's Music.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's quite the list.
The breakbeat guys.
Yeah.
That's those are the homies. Stanton Warriors are good friends of mine.
Yeah.
And they brought me on when they switched over from the label just being kind of a vanity project for them to put out their own stuff.
Nice.
To putting out other stuff. And I just kind of recommend, if someone passes me something, I recommend stuff to them. Whenever they're in town, I always hang out with the guys. It's a really great group of people running the label.
Nice.
And Stanton Warriors have been like, I've fanboyed off of them for like the last decade and a half.
Yep.
So it's really awesome to be able to like be so closely aligned with folks like that.
Dude, that's sick.
Yeah.
I had a chance to check out the Punk's website, and it's good looking. They got a lot of good articles. Good roster of artists.
Yeah, they're grabbing artists like really like right as they're starting to move up.
Yeah.
And they're getting these guys that are kind of in that crossover realm between like breaks and bass house and tech house, which is all kind of come together kind of in the last few years.
It really has.
It really has. Like
Yeah.
I feel like they're all ubiquitous with each other. It's not uncommon to hear a DJ play all three of those things in one set.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and from a producer standpoint, I mean, I've been kind of making some breaks lately, and I realized that you can literally just make tech house. You just offset the kick a little bit, and boom, it's breaks.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, like,
and a lot of the good breaks that are coming right now are really techy.
Yeah.
And they're not classified in the breaks category. They're in house.
Interesting.
So, yeah. If
Interesting.
you're looking on Beatport for really good break beats, look in tech house and bass house. That's where you'll find them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I know. Beatport's had a little bit of criticism with their genre categorization.
Yeah.
We were talking about that in the last podcast. I think it's just because they're just so big.
They are, and they've just continued to get bigger, even after they went through that period of getting bought out and then getting sold off. They still managed to hold that market of being the distributor of content for electronic music DJs in the industry.
Right.
Like everybody goes to Beatport when you want to buy a track, that's the first place you go to.
It's kind of a monopoly.
They really are.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody else is really doing it like they are. I mean, iTunes I mean, you're not going to be able to buy music from them for very much longer anyway.
Right,
so that's
right.
really going to be the only place to get it.
Yeah.
Unless you're getting it on promo.
And I don't know that can you buy waves and flax and stuff on?
No high quality.
Yeah.
They do 256 AAC, which they say is the same as 320, but you know, if you want high quality files,
that's great for 320. But I mean, a lot of people want the waves.
They want the wave,
you know.
Yeah.
Especially like as a producer, if I'm gonna do like some like bootleg remix or something,
that's where it's at. If you're doing the edit or the remix thing, always get the wave.
Yeah.
Because that's the best way to do it.
You gotta have it.
You gotta have the best sound quality available.
Yeah, I mean, if you're editing a 320, it just feels like you're. I mean, it can sound okay, but it just kind of, as a producer, you're like, you know that you're working with something that's already been squished a little bit. You know?
Right. And I mean, for the most part, most people can't tell the difference.
Sure, yeah.
But it's more of a feeling thing.
It is more of a feeling.
It's a feeling thing.
And a knowing thing.
It's just like, I know that I shouldn't be doing it this way.
Right, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So I guess let's start it. I wanted to ask you about Dubset.
Yeah.
I've kind of been aware of their stuff, for a while, or what they're doing, and I think it's incredible that something like this is finally becoming a thing. And I'm kind of surprised that it's only just now that it's becoming a thing, because we've had remixes for decades, and the internet for almost a decade. Or maybe 2 decades.
Yeah.
And what decade's 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, the internet's been around longer than that, but really the inflection point where everybody's on it has been, the last decade.
Right.
So it's been kind of a long road for Dubset. It started off as more of a SoundCloud-like thing where it was just people uploading mixes.
Yeah.
And then the last, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, pivoted to this model of basically what we do is instead of seeking these licenses out after the content is made, we sign blanket deals with record labels ahead of time. So we get access to their entire catalog.
Yeah.
They ingest that catalog into our database, and then when content creators upload their content, our technology checks that against our database to determine if there's a match. If there's a match and we can distribute it, then it goes to the queue for distribution.
Right.
So we're sitting on 40 million songs that are licensed.
Wow.
And among the labels, we have Warner and Sony as the majors.
Yeah.
And we also have just this huge host of indie labels.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the indie labels, indie dance labels, and are already signed up through us. So we're working with a lot, and it's tough. It's a really difficult game because it's not something that anybody's ever done before.
Right.
Literally
uncharted territories.
Completely, and we're learning every day how to do it, and we're improving it every day, and it's a really great place to work because you feel like this is something that's helping change the industry,
right,
and helping the record labels see that this is viable stuff. DJs have already been doing this for a long time. We've been using your music in clubs and putting it out there. So why not capitalize on it a little bit? Get paid for that content, because no matter what, it's going to be out there, and it's going to be out there.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to stop people from.
You can't stop it. You can't stop it.
Yeah, and it's just money left on the table if there's nothing figured out for a way of monetizing it.
Exactly, and I mean, even just as a centralized database, it's a really cool thing, because think about the fact that all of this music is sitting, the data for this music is sitting in one place, and that's never really been done before either, where there's this kind of centralized hub of not just all of these labels and their songs, but these labels and their distributors and what songs and all this information is just all being housed in one place. So it's just powerful information as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would think that as a label owner, you would want to actively reach out to a company like Dubset, because it's money left on the table. It's we want that. I mean, at the very least for to be able to track it. You know what I mean?
And that's what we found for the most part. There's definitely some labels who are a little bit weary of it. Sometimes it's because they feel like distributing their content in this way in a DJ mix may cannibalize their other content that lives on Spotify or Apple Music. Yeah. But what we found is that it actually gives uplift to the original masters. So they hear the song in a DJ mix, or the person hears a bootleg remix of it on the internet, on the platform, and they're like, oh, let me go check the original out and see what this actually sounds like. And I mean, because that's what I do as a DJ too. Like when I hear a really good remix, and if I haven't heard the original, I'll go back and listen to the original. If I like the original, I'm probably going to go back and listen to the original again just to be like, hey, let me compare the two. Let me see what they sound like. Let me get that feeling of hearing that song for the first time again.
Right. Or they, like I always go to Spotify and I'll look up a song and then, add it to a playlist or something. And then boom, now it's like being re-ingested in the format that maybe they originally kind intended. Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think, you don't even have to say it. I mean, everyone watching right now knows that that's kind of what the point of DJing has always been, is like, they're the curators of new music. And especially before the internet, I mean, people literally, they relied on DJs to find this good stuff, because you had to go to record stores and sift through stuff and listen to it. It was a time-consuming process, and that was kind of what made the DJ so fantastic. Before.
Well, and I think that difference between like being in the club and hearing a new song for the first time and hearing it on the radio is there's those, back in the day before the internet was big, you hear a song in the club and you'd be like, what is that?
Right.
What is that? I need to know what that is right now. And you'd have to wait to figure it out. And
until you heard it next.
Until you heard it again. And then maybe you could ask the DJ what it was. Right. But like,
but maybe not.
Maybe not.
But maybe you were like, what was the fifth song you played in your set? And he's like, I don't even know. Yeah,
he's like, I don't even know what the name of the song is. Sorry, bro.
Yeah, right. Yeah. People who are born into the age of the internet and Shazam will never know.
No idea.
They'll never know. Like. All the frustrated experiences. I remember having so many as a kid, like hearing it on the radio and like hearing like the tail end of it and being like, let me like log that in my memory, and then it's gone. It's gone.
Well, I used to keep at the house. I used to keep my tape player at the ready with the record button and the pause button turned on.
Oh, shit.
So all I had to do was take that pause button off. Even if I caught the end of it, I'd be like, I can remember that,
right?
And then I can ask somebody what that song is.
Right. Yeah. Totally. I had one of those. I still have it, actually. It's probably one of my oldest pieces of electronics. Is other than my cassette player and recorder, is one of those little old school tape, the mini tape recorders, the handheld ones. Those things are sick.
Yeah, they are. Those come in handy.
Yeah. Well, the early version of what is now the Tascam that I'm using to record the podcast.
For sure.
I actually I still keep it around because I always talk about this in the podcast, but I'm kind of slowly building what I call like a B studio, which is just going to be like maybe one or two old school samplers, a turntable, a synth, a mixer, and then like a tape, 4-track tape recorder or something.
Yes.
So then you have no internet. Simple. You just you have to sample. You have to like chop it up. You
really got to fight for that music.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and then of course like you could sample like field record, but it has to be to this little old school, which has its own quality of its own.
That's right. Like, well, those had I feel like tapes had their own interesting quality, anyways. Just the sound of like you could hear the hiss in it with it. They're similar to to records in that way, where it's just like it had its own feel listening to tapes, and that's all I listened to for so long.
Right. And that's kind of like, and that's my idea behind this whole thing, is because back in the day, those tracks had this kind of inherent quality, being sampled from records which were already kind of mastered. I mean, they were mastered for vinyl or whatever, but still, and then you have all the noise there, and cassettes and kind of all that, and then a digital sampler, which is very grainy and old school. It's, I don't know, I feel like it'll bring kind of
really interesting music that would come out of that studio.
For sure. And again, and I think even more importantly, it'll kind of force me to think like no VSTs, no like 10 million plugins. This is what you get.
Yeah, like keeping it simple.
You're right.
Yeah.
You know who does that still is Bibio. You know Bibio?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Bibio uses like these old school field recorders to plug his mics into and then record to tape, and then he dumps it into a DAW or whatever. But he's kind of captured.
But he's capturing that sound intentionally and originally to do it that way.
Right.
Which is really interesting.
He's a huge hipster. I mean, he also if you go to his Instagram, he's also using like old school cameras, like film cameras, taking photos, having them developed, and then uploading it to Instagram. I'm like, damn, dude.
He's really going through it.
He's going the distance, right?
Hey, I can appreciate that though.
I do.
Hey, that's aesthetic right there.
I mean, it's usually just photos of like, shrubs and bushes and rivers and shit, but it's like, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's like artistic, and it has his like vibe, you know?
I mean, some people, I have a 6-year-old, and I don't think he even knows that things like that exist.
That's what I'm saying.
He looks at my computer screen sometimes, and he's trying to do the scroll on it. I'm like, no, dude, it doesn't do that.
You need a mouse.
Yeah, you need, like, here you go. You use this one. Use the trackpad.
Right.
You can't just touch the screen.
Now you got fingerprints all over the screen.
Exactly.
Oh, that's amazing. So I guess maybe we'll wrap it with Dubset. So what, where do you kind of see this going in the future? Like, what's the end goal, or not end goal, but future goals?
Well, we're gonna just continue on the path that we're doing.
Yeah.
We'd like to get all of the majors signed. Universal is the last holdout. Largest record label in the world. Wow. They own like, just a little over 30% of the market share.
Wow.
Of all recorded music.
Jesus Christ.
So that's, we're fighting hard to make that happen. But really what we're concentrating right now on is delivering content to Apple Music, because Apple's been super supportive of DJ mix content.
Oh,
they
that's
actually
right.
opened up like it's a genre now. Apple hadn't added a new genre in over a decade.
Holy cow.
The last one I think they added was Latin music. So they added DJ mixes and live sets quietly last year to the platform, and they've been featuring a lot of our content. So we're out there right now, and that's actually what my job is right now, is helping acquire larger name DJs to record mixes for us. Right now we're working with Ministry of Sound. They do a monthly mix with us. And 1001 Track Lists does regular mixes with us, where they go out and they pull DJs in, and we're also pulling in our own DJs. Wow. It's been a really great ride. We got Green Velvet doing kind of a quarterly kind of thing that he does. Octopus Records does a monthly mix. Wow. And then we have just like other DJs who do one-offs with us, and we've gotten to work with some really incredible people, and there's a lot of DJs out there right now that are supporting the platform.
Wow.
That are seeing this. 2 years ago, we were struggling to get the name out there. We were out there, and people knew what we were, but I don't think that they were quite ready to embrace this as something that was viable at the time. And we had a lot of a smaller catalog at the time, and now it's beefed up, and we've really pushed hard to say, hey guys, if we don't all support this, then it can't be a thing. So let's all support this, because we DJs matter. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and it seems too like it might be a really, really great thing for smaller level like producers.
Absolutely,
because someone like Green Velvet, if he finds a track that maybe not, because that's kind of what DJs like to do too, is find these kind of like unknown tracks that they can play out, and people are like, what's this?
Well, that's actually been something that we found, is that I process a lot of these mixes.
Yeah,
and I'm finding stuff in these mixes. I'm like, this big name DJ just downloaded somebody's song, and the guy has like 150 followers, and this song only has like 400 plays on it. Wow. How on earth did you find this, first of all?
Right, yeah.
And you really must listen to every single one of your promos to find that one gem. So it's just really awesome to see that kind of turnover happening still in the industry. You think that it's gotten so big that everybody's just playing all their friends' big tracks, and it's really not that way. There's definitely still room for the little guy to climb up there, crawl his way, scratch his way up there, and get in there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like this might even make it even more legitimate, almost like back in the day when Pete Tong played one of your records or something like that, and that's kind of, now it's, Pete Tong's still definitely doing his thing. But, with something like Apple Music, and they're facilitating that as like one of the biggest, music distributors, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's exciting. It's a really exciting place to work.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's
That's
fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. I work with a bunch of music nerds that are all just as into it as I am. So it's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fun. So tell me about writing for and working with Insomniac. What was that like?
So about 5 years ago, I was actually working for a different blog for Danny Deal. She had her own blog at the time, and she hit up a bunch of the writers, and she was like, hey, Insomniac's looking for new writers, and I threw my hat in the ring, and she recommended me. And I started off just doing music reviews.
Wow.
And I was doing that for a few months, and I decided on a whim, I went to a Dirty Bird barbecue, and afterwards came home super inspired, because I love Dirty Bird. They're a homegrown company, and they, they touch all of our hearts. You go to a Dirty Bird barbecue, and you kind of go back to those days when they were doing it for free in Golden Gate Park.
Yep.
And I wrote an article about 5 reasons why Dirty Bird is the word.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
And they published it, and then the guy my editor who I was working with got back to me. He was like, "Hey, I'd like you to do more stuff like this." And I eventually like started getting into interviews and doing content like that. And it's been a really fun ride. They're an amazing company to work for. I mean, they're huge and they're a machine, but they're just full of people who honestly care so much about dance music.
Right.
Like, they really, really care so much about dance music, and they really all do this because of that. Like, it's because that's what's driving them.
Right.
Is that they love it as much as everybody else does, and they want more people to share in that.
Yeah.
And you can't be mad at that.
No.
Like,
no.
you know, it's been 25 years for them.
Yeah.
And you know, they've earned their place in the music industry, and I've been blessed to work with them.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, gotten me some cool perks, like getting to play at EDC a couple times.
That's right.
So I can't complain about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And getting into shows and stuff.
Yeah,
and,
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, just getting to meet some really awesome people.
Yeah.
You know, make some friends, make some really close friends, people who I still talk to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my first editor there, I still talk to him on the regular.
Nice.
And, you know, shout out John Ochoa, you're a dope writer. And you know, Danny, who also introduced me to all those people, she's also a good friend of mine. So just like that ride of being a writer, kind of, you know, and also as a music producer and a DJ, you don't see that side of the industry as much. You don't see what goes on behind the scenes with like a blog or with PR or how that machine operates. So it was an interesting way to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, how can I take this into all the other things that I do and make that better?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they've got to be massive at this point, as far as, you know, maybe not Amazon massive, but for
it's a big company.
For a music industry company.
It's a big company.
Yeah, maybe one of the bigger, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a big company.
Yeah.
I've worked a couple of shows with them where I was a journalist and I was like actually working in the office, and there's a huge team of people behind the scenes that's making all these things happen. You know, there's social media people and there's PR people and there's security and there's all of these like moving parts.
Yeah.
And it just works so well.
Yeah.
Like, they've really gotten this down to they're working like a fine-tuned machine. But it's awesome to watch, because you're like, look at there's a really huge company.
Right.
Yeah.
And it all evolves around EDC, but that's not
the only thing that they do. No, I mean,
yeah.
and even EDC has blown up in the last 5 years to be something bigger than it ever was, not just in Vegas, but worldwide. They did EDC Korea recently.
I saw that.
They did EDC China. They've done EDC Japan. Like, it's become more than just, you know, you think back to that last LA EDC.
Right.
And I don't think anybody ever thought at that point, because I think that was like the inflection point of like, dance music is getting big right now. It's getting so big, people want to break into a show to see it.
Right. Yes, exactly right.
And I don't think anybody ever thought it would be so big that an American company could dominate this large.
Yeah.
You know, and American producers right now could dominate this large, and even people from the UK are moving to the United States.
Right.
When before it was the complete opposite. It was
Yeah.
like all the people from America were like, I wish I lived in Europe because it's so cool over
Right.
there.
They have all the good EDM and electronic.
It's nice to see dance music I guess come home again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I mean, you know, some people would argue that disco and especially house music was born out of, like, you know, Chicago, you know, parts of the East Coast, and then, you know, but like the UK really, like, they held it down for a long time there.
They really took it to that next level.
Yeah, and they didn't just take it and like borrow it. Like, they took it and
turned it into its own thing.
Yeah, it's like they took a tree or something and planted it there and then made it a forest. You know what I mean?
No,
It's
absolutely. There's a huge debt of gratitude to. I mean, raving wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the UK, because that was not ours. It was still it was a different thing here,
right?
Until the raves got brought back here.
Raves and yeah.
Like, so there's a huge. I mean, I've always looked up to the UK for that. Like, they saw how important this was so long ago.
Yeah,
and I think it's just ingrained in their culture now.
Right,
like, it's really part of their cultural heritage. You know, dance music is, and that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and like, you know, UK garage or garage, however you want to call it.
I never know what to say.
I don't either. Yeah, I just call it garage.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. I'm not British. I can't get away with saying garage.
No, yeah. I tend to, you know, if it was someone's name, like, you know, Bob Moog or Moog, it'd be like, you know.
You want to get that one right.
Get with that one right. Yeah. Yeah. He might be listening. Not anymore. Sorry. Sensitive subject. Anyway, yeah, it's. I want to go out there because even like Berlin and like all these places, Bristol, so many of them are just holding it down and just.
They are, and they all. It's the funny thing about the Europe too is they develop their own. All of these cities develop their own individual sounds that are associated with subgenres of dance music. Like Berlin is heavy. Is like that's techno.
Yeah.
And you go to Bristol, and it's like that's where bass music came from.
Right.
Like,
and Bristol is somehow like popping just like Dirty Bird is over here, and it's like they're kind of. I mean, they're going off at the same time with the same kind of vibe and flavor. It's just wild that they're on
other ends of the planet.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And that's amazing. What I love about music too. Is like, producers, in Germany or Berlin or wherever, would hear something they like from the West Coast. Maybe it's Dirty Bird stuff, and be influenced. And like, people are so fucking smart now that they can like just reverse engineer shit and be like, oh yeah, I heard how I did that. I think I could do that. Add their own little flavor, and then boom, you've got some.
And then it's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
And that's how genres are born. And I think I said this on the last podcast too, but I really feel like Dirty Bird is kind of a genre now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you on that.
Like, because you could say tech house, but that doesn't necessarily mean.
Dirty Bird's not the same thing. It really falls into this like its own space where it's like it's tech house, but it's booty house. Yeah. But it's bass house. Like, it can be all of these things at once. Right. Like, Dirty Bird has its own sound. Yes. That's probably because Claude Von Stroke like A&Rs every single record that comes through the label. Like, he's still. Like, he hasn't he's got other people running the label, but he still listens to everything. Right. Yeah. Right. He still gives the final okay. He's still like, hey, that's the one right there. Yeah. Yeah. So wild. Speaking of A&Rs, so as an A&R for Punk's record label, what do you listen for as an A&R? What like kind of piques your interest? What makes you say, hey, this is something we might want to consider signing? Interesting sounds. Like. Because there's, everybody's using the same software, and the same sample packs and the same vocals for everything. So if I hear something kind of weird and awesome in the mix, that's always something that piques my interest. Yeah. But also, just even if it's not an interesting sound, just like rehashing old stuff, but doing it in a way that invokes an emotion. Yeah. Like, if I can feel my chest popping while I'm listening to something, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a good one. Right. Like, and there's so much music coming out. Yeah. That the spaces in between feel like an eternity. Sure. Like, between here, like, getting that feeling. Yeah. Where you want to keep hitting the repeat. Yes. And I think that's the feeling that you look for as an A&R or even as a DJ, is that I want to hear that song again, not like 5 minutes from now. I want to hear it again right now. Right. Like, I need to hear it again right now. If I need to listen to that Beatport loop 10 times in a row, then that's the one. It's the same thing you're looking for as an A&R, is that feeling of like, I could play this in my next 15 sets and still want to play it again and again. Right. Yeah. It's I think it's what everybody as a producer kind of strives to come up with. And it's interesting because I have, I've got, VSTs like everybody, and I have my share of hardware, and I have these, I guess maybe ultimate moments of kind of creativity where you do kind of create something, whether it's, something from a VST and a preset, and you kind of transform it, hopefully, ideally, into something that's kind of unique, or you create something completely from scratch, which is kind of like, in my opinion, the ultimate. Right. But again, you have these. There are songs too that you can kind of tell are like typical sounds, like maybe like a house song I'm thinking of that's just a typical kind of M1 organ, that that kind of thing. And you've heard it in a million songs, right? But sometimes they just hit the nail on the head, and they kind of do it a slightly different way with the right vocal or something, and it just fucking hits it home, Well, I think Chris Lake has been really good at that. Yeah. Because if you listen to his music, and this is something he said himself, that he's not super into sound designy stuff. Like, he's not in there tweaking the knobs and like creating all these crazy sounds. And it's not that it's basic, but he's using a lot of stuff that you've heard before, but the way that it's been put together and the feeling that he's able to evoke from that is just amazing. And that's a really interesting thing to be like, okay, you can definitely go the sound designing route and do this crazy stuff. There's also a lot to be said for for something that sounds familiar enough that you want to hear it over and over again because that's what it is.
Yeah, right. And I tend to try to land somewhere in the middle of kind of the speed and flexibility of using sounds that are kind of pre-made and making them your own versus synthesizing stuff from scratch, because one takes a hell of a lot longer than the other.
That's for damn sure.
But there's also, people are always also, like you need to crank out tracks as fast as possible. So it's like you got to find this delicate balance.
Because it could take a long time to create a track.
Right.
When you're creating it all from scratch.
Right.
I mean, I've done both.
Yeah.
And things get really interesting when you start creating something from scratch. You're like, oh, I spent like the last 3 hours working on this sound. Maybe let's just start writing the song again.
Right. exactly. Yeah, I've had tracks where I've created literally everything from scratch, and I've had tracks where I've used almost entirely presets.
Yeah.
And to be honest, as long as the kind of the muse in me is like peaking at the moment, and I'm like really in the zone, the end result doesn't really matter. I mean, because I feel the same way about both tracks. And again, like as a producer, like if I make something that I want to keep, re-listening to, that's kind of how I know that I've hit the nail on the head.
Producing and DJing is kind of a selfish act anyways, because you're really just making stuff that you want to hear.
Exactly, yeah.
And you hear it and you're like, this is really good, and I want everybody else to hear it.
Exactly, right.
Because I want to hear it.
Right. hey, I think you'll like this,
Because I do.
Right, yeah. So what kind of stuff do you make then as a producer?
I was making a lot of breaks for a long, long time, and I've recently started making more house music. So that's where I'm at right now. Like I still love a good breakbeat.
Oh yeah.
But I've been doing a lot more 4 to the floor stuff.
Yeah.
Recently, kind of bass housey, not just like heavy stuff, but kind of in the middle of the pocket.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Kind of toying with things and seeing how that works out, and working. I have like one release that is actually supposed to be coming out like in like a couple weeks.
Nice.
And then just trying to put myself back out there and get out of the pigeonhole.
Yes.
Because once you've been known for one thing, it's hard to be like, okay, well, I'm doing this thing now.
Right.
And this is, this is where I'm at, and it could change again in 5 years. I don't know.
Absolutely.
That's the interesting thing with music, is that it changes so often and your tastes change. And I'm always going to love dance music, but what I love about it could change the next 5 years.
Right. And that's why it really helps to be to stay flexible and be kind of a chameleon,
Yeah.
8 years ago I was making much more electro-y stuff, and when that was kind of the thing, and now it's much more kind of like bass housey and even a little bit deep housey, you know what I mean? And as an artist myself, I kind of always struggle. I've done good in the sense that I've categorized my musical sessions and output into kind of two aliases and genres, right? Like kind of future bass and then everything house music, including breaks and all that stuff. But even then, I try not to really limit myself too much. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I had kind of a bootleg that I did that just ended up more like deep housey. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go with it.
That's the fun thing about it.
Exactly.
I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't really matter.
You can produce whatever you want. That's the fun thing about having all of this stuff at our fingertips now.
Right.
And having something like Splice out there where I can just be, or VSTs. Like before, you have to buy thousands of dollars of outboard equipment to do much of anything, and now it's all under the hood.
It's crazy.
It's all right there.
Yeah,
it's great. It's like awesome. I look for actually Splice is like one of the best places for me to go just look for inspiration to figure something out.
I know. Yeah. I had a subscription for a while, and I think I'm going to pick it back up again.
I dropped mine for a while, and then I brought it back up again.
It's just
recently, and I was just like, oh yeah, I forgot. There's just so much out there.
I know. For me, there's some weird aspect of inspiration that I get from it that I don't quite get from, sample packs. I mean, I have like a whole bunch of sample packs of different genres, right? And I don't know that there's any reason why they would be any more or less inspiring, but like for whatever reason, going through,
I think it's the randomness of it.
It's
like if you go on because you can do random searches for keywords there, and then it's kind of like getting lost in the SoundCloud hole. You're just like, you just start clicking, you're like, oh wow, that one's cool. Like, where did this come from?
Right.
Like, there's just it's the way they have it set up, it allows you to dig.
Yes.
Like it's like crate digging again. It's like digging through records, like record samples, and you're like, oh, I got it. This is a good one.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I hear stuff that I have in other people's songs, like big songs, and I'm like, oh wow, I have that one. That's pretty dope what they did with that. I never thought of that. That's so awesome. So I think they've created this amazing platform that, hit it just the right time. And it's digging.
Right.
Finding the right thing, or finding 10 of the right thing.
Yes, right, yeah. Well, I liked it too because if I wanted to head into a particular genre, I could just search that, and it will give me all the samples that will fit that genre.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that was a little bit difficult for me because I know with like tech house, there's kind of a specific sound for tech house versus regular house,
right?
Which we're talking micro.
It's tiny, but
tiny differences between house and
Absolutely.
tech house. It was something like tech house, like the samples are just shorter.
Right.
They're more. There's more space needed between the hits.
Right.
And so when I was kind of getting started, I might just kind of without thinking about it, use maybe like I'll just use a house sample pack. I'm like, why doesn't sound like tech house really? And of course there's like processing and all that stuff too. But I think with tech house, it's so simple that so much of it is just the samples.
It's just the samples.
Yeah.
It's just like it's the sounds that you use, and I think that's like. I think, and I hear this from like lots of like other A&Rs and like other producers, and they're like, 9 times out of 10, it's not just about your mix down or about how good you are as a producer, or like the chord progression. It's about the sounds that you're using to create that same feeling. Like they all have to mesh well together.
Right.
And if you're going for a certain feeling, using that long wompy like sub may not necessarily work for this style. You gotta figure it out. You gotta get that shit in the pocket.
Right, yeah. Well, and there's some producers too that will make something that's tech house, but it's just so far out of the normal wheelhouse that it's like that's when it becomes fresh and new. You know what I mean? One thing that comes to mind is Justin Martin's Clouds album. It's so good. It's such a good album.
So good.
And it's like it's mostly tech house, you know, but it's such a different kind of tech house.
Yeah,
it's like,
he did something way different with that. It's a masterpiece.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What I like specifically that he did is, you could tell like a lot of those sounds are just recorded from scratch. They're out of his studio, but. I noticed too, he has kind of, not every song just starts with, has the typical kind of DJ intro,
Right.
It might not just start with drums that you can mix in easily, He'll kind of start with like these, synths and kind of vocal, that sort of thing, which, you can mix those in just as easily, which is kind of why I'm starting to consider that myself. I'm like, oh yeah, like you don't necessarily, like I feel like just starting with drums is almost very bass level.
You don't have to start with a kick drum.
You don't.
No.
Yeah.
You can start wherever you want. I think that's something I've noticed about dance music albums too. The more interesting ones, they kind of separate. Here's the DJ version, but here's the way that we wanted it to sound.
Right.
And this is, it may start bland in the middle of the chorus.
Sure.
Who knows?
Right.
Like I may give you a sample for 30 seconds.
Right.
A weird clippy sample for 30 seconds, but this is the way it was intended to sound.
Yes.
Like let's get to the meat of it real fast. I think
that's more interesting.
It's far more interesting.
As far as what's going to catch your ear, what I mean? Like that's what is. Otherwise it just sounds like every other house track.
I think that maybe where we've gotten into this whole. There's a difference between creating an album and creating singles.
Yeah.
Singles are you can bang them out, or you can start this DJ intro, you can do all these things, but when you're an album, you're thinking conceptually.
Yeah.
And you really got to be able to grab people quickly.
Yeah.
With every song, because you have 30 seconds.
Right.
Really, you have less than that. You have 10 seconds to get someone's attention before they hit that next button and move on to the next thing.
And every DJ is kind of their own A&R.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like listening for tracks, and it's amazing how fast you can tell whether you like a song or not. Sometimes
it's almost instant.
So it's almost like half a second,
Yeah, no.
And if you hear something you like, you might let it run for a couple more seconds. But.
Yeah, no, I go through promos. Sometimes it takes me a long time to go through them.
Yeah.
But sometimes I go through them incredibly fast, and I'm like, this is not for me. This is not for me.
Mm-hmm.
This one's dope. This is like a 5 out of 5. This one's a 3 out of 5. But I'll go through them quick because I'm like, I can tell I'm going to hit that hit the first like 15 seconds,
Yeah.
and get like a minute and a half in and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's really good. Like
Yeah.
you really, as a DJ, you start to pick that up over time too. You can tell quickly, like what you're gonna like, and also what's gonna move your audience in the dance floor too.
Right. I always wonder if there's anything else that has something like that, like, someone that's like, picking photographs for a magazine or something. They just fly through photos and they're like, no, yes, that's the one.
I'm sure that with a lot of creatives, it's like that.
Yeah.
Where you're critiquing other people's art.
Yeah.
And you're in a place where you can curate it. I mean, you have to be able to weed through a lot of it really quickly, or you're gonna get,
it's time consuming.
It's really time consuming.
Because you have a job to do to
like
provide whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it could be spend hours just doing that alone.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do already.
Right. I know. And then, talk about like finding music for your own DJ sets. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, it's insane.
It is.
That's why I like something like, things that have really good algorithms, like Spotify, really good like discovery algorithms and that sort of thing. You brought up singles versus albums. As a producer, what's your take on that? Because there's two kind of camps. There's people that are like, you should just be releasing singles because music is so digestible that you got to constantly be in people's ears. Or do you take the time to really kind of craft something and hone it and perfect it and then put it out? Or is it somewhere in between?
Well, I think you really have to be ready to do something like an album. Some people may not be built for that. I'm not sure that I've ever gotten to a place where I think I could put an album together.
Oh, yeah.
Like conceptually putting together like, 8 to 12 songs that I think go well together and can create an overarching piece of work. That's difficult, and it's time consuming, and it can take years to put together.
Yeah.
And it comes down to everything, not just the sound of each song.
Yeah.
But how those songs go together. It's like spending a year and a half creating a DJ set.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not everybody's suited for that.
Sure.
So I think that may be why, and I think because we've gotten to this point where songs are so easy to make and music is coming out so quickly that the number of good albums is few and far between. It's just because people aren't making them.
Right.
And I don't think every producer, we have a lot of young producers right now that are just getting into the game, and they grew up in this culture of I gotta have it now, so they may not be thinking in terms of that. And even some of the older producers are seeing the way this is going, and they're like, I could put out an album right now, but people may not listen to the whole thing.
Sure.
So maybe I could put out 3 sets of EPs and all the same work that goes into them. It's just really hard to tell.
Yeah.
Like which are going to be good. I mean, I'm trying to think of like the last time I've heard a good album. I think actually the Stanton Warriors' last album was fantastic.
Wow.
From start to finish. Yeah. I listened to it. I started listening to it on my walk to work, and I was like, no, I'm going to wait till I get to the office because we have a Sonos in the office. So I'm going to force everybody to listen to this.
Yeah.
And like halfway through it, my friend turns around and he's like, what is this, man? This is really, really good. And I was like, oh, yeah, this new Stanton Warriors album. He's like, my God, this is great. And I was like, it's hard to be a producer or to be in a duo that can actually evoke that emotion from people through a large work of art.
Right.
For anything.
Yeah.
So I think, there's a lot to be said for both ways of doing things. But I think if you're going to say that, if you're going to create an album, don't just put 12 tracks together that you produced.
No.
Save those for the singles. Like if you're going to create an album, really spend the time and say, I want to work with people. I want to collaborate. I don't want it just to be about my art. I want to be about bringing other people's artwork up and like putting something together that can exist both individually as pieces, but also as the whole work. I want like an album should be something you listen to from start to finish.
Yeah.
And then listen to it from start to finish again and again and again. You should want to hear it that way.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Clouds is a perfect example of that, And there's some tracks on Clouds that, I'll say like I wouldn't search them out and listen to them just in and of themselves. Still fantastic tracks, but they're kind of tracks that keep the album cohesive.
Well, I think that's the other thing about albums too.
Yeah.
Is that there are going to be songs in that they're not quote unquote filler.
Sure.
But that are the songs that exist in the album to keep the continuity going.
Right.
To keep it interesting.
Exactly.
And for dance music, sometimes those are the ones that don't work in the club.
Right. Right.
And you have to be willing to take that chance to write a couple of songs that no DJ is going to play.
Yeah.
But as a representation of yourself, it works, and it's still just as dope as anything else you put out.
And maybe it's something that people listen to, in the context of the album on their own, not in the club. Mm-hmm. Like there's one track on Clouds that's kind of like a love song. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Yeah. I can't remember what the sample is, but he sampled something. It has some sample about love or something like that, and it's a great track. But it's definitely I can't imagine many people play it out at in their DJ sets.
No, probably not. But hey, it was good enough to put on the album, and I think that's the thing. Well, that's the other thing about albums too, is that you really have to be a good curator.
Yeah, right.
Of your own work, or at least have a team around you that's willing to be 100% honest with you.
Yeah.
About this conceptually, and be like, yeah, that's gonna work, and you know what, that you got to get rid of that one. It's just not doing the thing.
Not doing it.
Yeah.
Right. I wish I could hear those tracks at some of my inspiration.
I want to hear the bad ones.
I want to hear the bad ones.
I really do,
that Claude Von Stroke throws aside.
I feel like that would make me feel better about myself as a producer.
Yeah,
I hear the good stuff, and I'm like, this makes me never want to pick up, go open my DAW again.
Exactly right.
And then I want to hear the bad one. I want to be like, oh my god, this is truly terrible. You spent time on this, and it's just as bad as anything that I've ever done.
Right?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
I go back and forth too with my own samples and stuff, because I'll have stuff that in the moment I thought was really great, and I recorded it to my phone, and then maybe brought it home and made a better recording of it, whether it was a vocal or a synth melody or something. And I have this whole folder of categorized sounds of my own. I of course have drum sample packs as well, but I've got my own folder. And some of it I go through and I'm like, I should just I personally don't want to be reminded that I thought this was good.
Yeah, no, I've been there before too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
There's actually some music that I released early on that I listen to now, and I'm like, oh wow,
yeah,
that's not good.
Right,
that's not good. I wish I could delete
wipe it from the internet.
I wish I could delete things off the internet.
Those
but it's
damn
there.
Russians have fucking uploaded
right?
and it'll be there forever.
It's going to be there forever.
Yeah,
I see things pop up in my Google alerts, and they're songs that I wrote 5 or 6 years ago from some Russian site, and I'm like, wow, why?
Right.
Why are you doing this to me? I want to forget that happens.
Right. But someone told me something that really eased my mind in that sense. Is they were saying that people won't ever remember or even listen to the songs that they didn't like of yours.
No, it's true.
Which
they
is
just
fine.
Forget if it's forgettable, it's forgettable.
Right.
They're not going to listen to it.
No, yeah. So I mean, and that makes me feel better too, because I do have tracks that I released 8 years ago that I'm kind of still attached to my name, and maybe that comes up, but whatever. It's you listen to a lot of I guess it's not a good example, but you listen to a lot of early Skrillex stuff, and it's still fantastic. But I'm sure he's probably
he's still you don't hear him play it anymore.
No, right? Yeah, and he's probably oh god, it was so emo at the time, and wish
I mean, everybody's got those.
Yeah.
Got those in their catalog somewhere.
It's just the progression of being a human, and especially if you have been, I've been producing since I was 20, 21, and I'm 36 now.
Yeah.
So I mean that's a long time
I'm
to
about the same place.
Yeah.
I'm 37. I started producing around the same time.
Yeah, right. And so I mean it takes, and that's another thing too that I always remind myself is being an electronic musician, you are really required, unlike being in a band or whatever, you're really required to do it all yourself, all of it, especially sometimes even the mixing and mastering, I mean, if you're really spending all those dollars on new synths and plugins and DAWs and stuff.
I visibly sighed, because it's the bane of my existence to do a mix down. I will admit this to anybody.
Yeah, right.
I love writing music.
Right.
I hate mixing it down.
Yeah.
But you are required to do everything. You have to be a one-person show.
Right. As well as Photoshop.
Yeah,
and
you have
if
to
you need a
learn all
video,
things.
it's crazy.
Well, I mean, unless you have a huge team behind you and you have the cash flow to pay for all that, which 99% of us don't.
Right.
You got to figure out how to do it all on your own.
Right. Which is why a lot of DJs might not, or producers might not even get noticed until they're well into their 30s, maybe even 40s.
No.
You look at someone like Claude Von Stroke, and I think he's 37 or 38 now, and
he might even be older than that.
Yeah, but he really
didn't start getting big until he was in his 30s already when he started Dirty Bird.
Yes.
Because he said he was in journalism.
Yeah.
And he was working a job he hated.
Yeah, he's doing a video.
Yeah, and he had a song, and his wife was like, "Look, you have 1 year to make this work," and it just worked. But that's that's an inspirational story to me, though.
Yeah,
as
for sure.
As an aging dance music producer. So I'm like, okay, well, it's never not time to do that. And I mean, or you look at Carl Cox, who's been on top forever, and he's got to be like 60 years old.
Oh my God, I know. Well, that gives me a lot of hope too. Is like, I started making like, hip hop and rap, back in the 2001, 2002.
Right. That's where I was at too.
Yeah, I mean, that was just what was popular.
It really was.
Yeah. But like, in that world, if you haven't made it by 25,
you might as well hang up. You might as well hang it up.
Exactly, right. And with something like electronic music, I mean, there's no shelf life.
Well, I mean, for most producers, you're just a faceless guy making weird robot sounds.
Exactly, right.
And in the club, I mean, even on festival stages, you can't see who the hell's playing anyways.
Exactly, right.
It's all dark. Even if there's lights up there, the person's like this big.
Yeah.
Nobody cares what the guy looks like that's playing. It's all that matters. I feel like in more popular, like pop music or hip hop or rock or even like, singer-songwriter stuff, the image of the person matters just as much as the actual art itself, and sometimes even more so.
Right.
Which and I feel like in dance music, maybe it's changing now, but that pretentious idea that the image matters as much as the music, it doesn't.
No.
Nobody cares what you look like as long as you're making dope music or you're playing dope music.
Right. Yeah. Well, and also too, I mean, we're literally going to watch, if there is a shelf life, which I don't think there is, but we're going to start seeing it pretty soon, because as producers get into their 50s and 60s and 70s and maybe 80s, like, it's going to be like that fucking Face app where, all the DJs are actually that old.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I mean, there's a, that group of elder statesmen in the DJ realm that helped start this whole scene that we're all in love with. You got your Frankie Boneses and Tommy Sunshine and Carl Cox and Pete Tong and Paul Oakenfold and like Sasha and Digweed, all these guys, they're still out there doing this.
Oh yeah.
They're still slaying it.
Right.
Like they're really still killing it.
Yeah.
Like all of these years later, and they started this stuff like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I mean, that means I still got at least another 30 years left of this whole raving thing, and I'm okay with that.
At least, right. Me too. Yeah.
I could keep doing this. I like it.
Right, yeah. you might change the vibe a little bit, maybe, not go out quite as late or whatever, but like
maybe slow it down just a little bit, but I don't see an end for this.
No.
Like I love it that much. I feel like that's you get yourself, and I maybe dance music is unique in that way, where it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, it's dark out there. Nobody cares what you look like on the dance floor as long as you're having a good time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I always tell people I went to Peru many years ago and went out there with the girl I was with, and there was, families that were going out, moms, dads, aunts, uncles, along with their 21-year-old, daughters and stuff, and they were going out as a family, all dressed up, and like,
I'm with it.
I think it's just like it might just be like this weird American thing where it's like, oh, you're too old for that, you gotta put that on the,
There's actually a study that just came out of the UK that was talking about raving past 30.
Really?
And they were saying I don't remember what the percentage was, but there's a large percentage of people in the UK that are still going out well into their 30s.
Oh, yeah.
And the question kept coming up, how old is too old to do that? And for American people, they're like, oh, why don't you start getting kids, or why don't you do this and that? You can't do that anymore. It's like,
No.
I want to see an old man. I want to see an old man and an old lady out there.
Yes.
That is awesome to me.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
You keep doing it.
Exactly, yeah.
It makes you happy, you keep doing it.
Right.
There's no time limit on this.
Right. Maybe you have to get a babysitter or something. But
I mean, that's what we do.
Yeah. Right. Oh, it gives me life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
But I think too, like, there's something very specifically important to a lot of electronic music fans that is a little different with other genres. I think. I mean, people that tend to like electronic music, they like it so much to their core that it's like it is them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not just what you do; it's who you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why it makes sense. It's like, why would you give up this part? It's like me, like, oh yeah, I should just stop making music now. Like, that's not ever going to be a thing.
No.
I'm not ever going to retire.
Why would I do that?
Right. I'm just going to keep doing the things I love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until maybe,
Well, I think there's a generational thing going on there too.
Yeah.
I feel like at the time when raving started to become a thing,
Yep.
we're in a generation. It's a generation like our brothers and sisters, like
Sure.
the people before us and the generations after us are in this different group of following their passion. And it may have something to do with this whole everybody gets a participation badge thing, which could be a bad thing, but it's also a really great thing because it's just saying, hey, you can do the thing that you love.
Right.
And you can keep doing it forever. And, either let it be your job or let it be a hobby, but you don't have to stop doing something just because you get older. Keep doing that thing if it makes you happy.
Exactly.
And, for all of us people who decided to move into the industry and actually get a job doing it, we got super lucky. And maybe our parents worked a job that they hated for their whole life just because that's what they said, that's what they thought they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And, we get to live out our dreams and our fantasies every day. And, we may look at more spreadsheets than most other people, but, we're still getting to do the thing that we love. And even if it's not just music, like, I feel like our generation and the generations after that, we're going to continue to see this idea where, like, I can do what I want. And I don't just have to go into a profession because I make a lot of money.
Right.
Or because it's what my parents did, or it's because it's what I'm supposed to do. I can do what I want.
Right.
I mean, look at Instagram influencers. Whoever thought you could make money just
from
taking
your butt.
from your butt. I took pictures of my butt. Pay me.
Pay me.
Pay me.
And they make a lot of money.
I made $10 million last year off my booty. That's crazy. I was talking to somebody about like video games. Like when we were young, video games were something you did for fun.
Right.
Whoever would have thought that there could be a thing called a professional gamer?
Making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Some of these like pro gamer teams.
My friend was telling me about this. He was saying that it costs millions of dollars just to be like as the team to get into these competitions, and I'm like, it costs millions of dollars to be in the competition. These guys are making bang.
Yeah, right.
That's crazy.
And then they're streaming and doing whatever else.
That's awesome. Everybody can do what they want. Yeah. And in dance music, I feel like we're working in a group of people where everybody believes that.
Yeah.
Like to their core.
Right.
Like, and we've seen the results of that on stage.
We've
seen geeky guys and girls.
Yeah.
Get up there on stage and destroy it, and we're just like, I want to do that too.
Yeah. I think we really were the first generation. I mean, it's almost specifically you and I.
Absolutely.
Being 30, 36, 37. Like, the baby boomers who were our parents, they were raised, I guess, however they were raised, and then they raised us kind of like, you can be anything you want to be, little Billy,
Yeah.
And then, me specifically, I was like, I want to get into music, and then like my parents were like, "Oh, whoa, we didn't mean that."
I got super lucky in that aspect. My parents my brother is super into music too.
Yeah.
It's like one of the things that we share.
Nice.
He's 4.5 years older than me. And he was in a boys choir.
Oh yeah.
And I used to see him perform, and I kept telling my mom I was allowed to join the boys choir when I was 7 years old, and I kept saying, my 7th birthday, that's where I'm going to be.
Wow.
And I joined the boys choir when I was 7. It's all I've ever wanted to do my entire life was be involved in music. And my parents constantly shelled out money and did all of these things and took me to concerts. Like this boys choir, had 2 rehearsals a week, and I had to be in concerts every weekend. And then when I was in high school, I was in a competitive like jazz choir, and I was in like show choir. I've done music like my entire life.
Yeah, right.
Professionally, like it's the only thing I've ever wanted to do, and I'm so fortunate, and I'm so grateful for my parents because they every step of the way they've always encouraged it. Yeah. And I think I owe a huge debt of gratitude to that because they were so instrumental in like just saying, okay, that's the thing that you want to do.
Outlet.
They were just like, hey, go do that. We didn't always have the most money, but they always had enough money to be like, hey, if this is something you really want to do, then go ahead and do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they never let me quit even when I got frustrated. They were just like, but you really like doing this, so keep doing it.
Yeah, yeah. I was being facetious. My parents were entirely supportive. And I was in choir as well.
Really?
Yeah. And then played a bunch of instruments and never really learned all of them as much as I would have liked.
Same.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But the choir thing, I think I gained the most from, oddly enough. I never really, lots of people everybody was supposed to like practice their songs and like read the sheet music and the lyrics, and I never studied, I never practiced. What I did is I would just learn the songs kind of like when we were all like
doing it together.
practicing together, and then I would just kind of did it all by ear.
Right.
And that's really kind of, I don't have a whole lot of I don't like music theory knowledge. I don't really have that much. I just kind of do it all by ear. And
but having that ear is really invaluable.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's you're either born with it or you don't have it. It's not something that you can't teach somebody that.
No, not really.
I mean, you can teach them all the music theory in the world, but if you don't have the ear for it, it's just like dancing. Some people just don't have rhythm.
Right.
And they can dance as much as they want to, and they're still not good.
Right. Yeah. But also too, like, from an early age being on a stage, even if you're just singing with a bunch of other kids or, performing in your jazz choir or whatever, like that's kind of setting the stage, for no pun intended, for other things that you might want to do later. And all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I mean, it's not even like a conscious thing, but you're like, I kind of like the idea. Maybe I want to be a DJ. And then you're like, oh, but it means I have to get on stage. And a lot of people will just be like, I could never, like all those eyes on me. You know what I mean?
Like, no, I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's narcissistic as hell, but I love being on stage.
Sure. Yeah.
It's one of the places I'm the happiest.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I love being in front of a crowd, whether it be 5 people or 500 people. Like, I just get off on that stuff, man. And I think
those are the people that should be on stage.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's awesome. I do have this weird thing where, I haven't tested it recently. Actually, doing the headroom thing here has been a big help. But I remember when I was DJing before, but back when I was playing a lot of dubstep and electro and stuff. And this could be too because my stuff wasn't really mixed as well as it is now. But I was kind of self-conscious of playing my own stuff and slipping it in between other tracks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know that feeling.
But I think now, knowing more about heading more into a certain genre with any given song that I'm trying to make, and really kind of like owning the genre, but also making my own sound, right? That's really helped, because before it was like, I was younger and I'm still very, very experimental, and it was like, it was almost too experimental. Yeah,
I went through the same thing. I feel like my sound didn't really start to develop until after I've been producing for like quite a while.
Right. Like if you told me when I was 21 that it would take to 35 to like really like nail that's a long time.
It is a long time. And I mean, some people are more fortunate, they pick it up faster, but I mean, that's okay too. I mean, all of that experience is helped me in a huge way.
Right.
But when I first, I feel you on that, just like it was just kind of all over the place at the beginning.
Yeah. Which I think you just have to, that's just where everyone starts.
Yeah. Everybody sucks at the beginning.
Yeah. Right.
Nobody's first song is any good.
No. What's that famous quote by Ira Glass that he says, when you first are starting out, your taste is really good, and that's why you decide to do it, whatever it is you want to do, but your skill set does not match your taste.
This is true.
Yeah. And then eventually your skills match your taste.
Even the first episodes of This American Life are real fragmented and kind of not even anywhere near as good as they are now.
No. I mean, it just takes time. Yeah. It's just, there's no substitute for time and experience. Yeah.
I mean, even if you're really good right off the bat, there's a lot of other things you may have to learn through time too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm probably look back on these podcasts in 5 years and, shake my head, Although I have done other podcasts before, and I definitely shake my head at those. So I'd like to think that maybe I
you've probably learned something by this point.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. And I kind of did podcasts for like studios and other people as well. So I mean, I kind of grinded my teeth, I guess, on those. You know what I mean, or cut my teeth on those.
Yeah.
So it's a learning process.
Well, I mean, you got a pretty dope setup in here.
Yeah.
Thanks. I feel like a professional.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think most of it is where we are, but
this is true. Yeah. I mean, you have microphones and stuff. I'm not talking into your iPhone.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. That's a good point. There are a lot of podcasts that are just literally, 2 mics and maybe just a Tascam or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. I think that the video adds a lot. Not everyone's going to watch the video all the time.
Right.
Or the live stream or whatever, but I know for myself, I tend to latch on to podcasts a little bit more, that I can at least see, and like once you've seen enough of them, then you kind of have it in your head.
You kind of in your head, yeah. Absolutely.
Right. But if you don't, then it's like you're just listening to some,
Unless there's like really interesting sound designy stuff going on.
Sure.
Like
Radiolab.
That's I was just listening into it on the way here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever seen their Pro Tools session?
No.
they posted a picture of their Pro Tools section.
Yeah.
It's like over 100 tracks.
Holy shit.
And the way things dip and weave in and out of each other, you can actually visually see like how the audio sounds. And there's just like rises and falls, like all of this automation. I'm just like, how on earth did you guys even think of doing things this way?
Right.
Like, it's just amazing.
That's such a good show, man. It's like, I really feel like they created something special, adding all the whole story. I mean, you could tell so much goes into each episode, from the journalist side of things, where they do the investigative journalism. They write it all out. They get the people. They get the backstory, the front story, and then of course they do the narration and the in-room interviews, and then they tie it all together.
What I love about it is that they've figured out a way to tie narration into, like, from both sides, where the journalist is narrating, and the person who's being interviewed is also narrating, and they just weave together seamlessly, almost as if they're both telling the story in concert.
Right.
And it's not an interview; they're both telling the story together, and that's just amazing.
The interviewer is kind of narrating and just talking, but then you'll also hear the person saying it for themselves. Yeah. And then and it's like it's all smushed together then with the sound design, and it's like, it's wild.
Yeah, no, I'm utterly astonished every time I listen to it.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. I was pleasantly surprised to find that they have like just a podcast of theirs. So you don't have to like wait to hear it on the radio or
no, I've been listening to the podcast for a really long time.
Yeah.
I heard it on the radio once, and I'm super into podcasts. I'm probably following like 50 of them.
Awesome. Me too.
Yeah, it's great.
There's just not enough time in the
No,
in
there
the
really
day.
isn't.
Yeah.
Like I have to designate like certain parts of the week. I know when some of them come out, and I'm like, oh yes, it's
yeah, absolutely. You get a little notification on your phone, like, oh,
like
shit.
yes, it's a new episode. I can't wait to listen to this.
Right. What are some of your favorites?
Reply All.
I've heard good things about that one.
This American Life, of course. Mm-hmm. I've been listening to. There's let's see what else. Radiolab, of course. Planet Money is really good.
Yep. Listen to that.
I've been listening to a couple of ones that are like storytelling, where it's like a radio theater. There's one with Rami Malek that came out. Oh. That's called Blackout, and it's about a town. There apparently the entire eastern seaboard's power goes out for some reason. Oh wow! And this town kind of goes into martial law, and it's about like this fight within the town, like with this martial law thing going on, and this family's trying to get out. Wow! It's just really, really well done, like super compelling stuff. What else? And I have another one like that's called Tanis. That's kind of like a science fiction. Oh yeah. That thing that's going on. So I mean, it's just all over the board. I don't even follow anything that's like no two are alike. Oh right. Yeah. I'm just like, I just want to consume all of it.
Yeah, right. As long as it's captivating, that's really all I care about. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's kind of cool that like this whole idea of radio is being reborn again in the podcast. Like I think people had abandoned the idea of like talk radio or storytelling through radio for a long time. Like it was kind of thought to, that's not cool anymore. Yeah. And podcast made it really cool again, and people are able to do really interesting things with that now.
I've always loved talk radio, and
I have too.
There was, of course, the days of AM, FM, and that sort of thing when that was all you got, and then around like maybe 2003 to 2004, they tried to do they made like a new talk radio station, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was called because I haven't thought about it in years, but it was just talk radio, and they had all these shows that would constantly come on, and like some controversial stuff like Tom Likas. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
No.
He's very, very controversial. He's anyway, you just Google him. You'll see what he talks about. But he was on there, and then they had I think maybe early Opie and Anthony, or they had some other guys. Fernando and Greg. They got kicked off their thing and then kind of moved over there for a while. But it was really interesting, and it was around for maybe like 3 or 4 years, and then it died off. It died off. But then podcasts became a thing. Yeah. And I think that's why I love podcasting so much, because I get the chance to essentially have my own talk radio show, and that's the reason why. I mean, I did a podcast with a buddy before that was really cool too, where we kind of had producer friends on and stuff, and we would talk, and then we would play some of their music, and then they would talk about it and sort of thing, and that was fun too. But it kind of breaks things up a little way in a way that's kind of hard to maintain much of a conversation.
Yeah, I feel that.
I
feel that.
And a lot of times too, when I'm driving, I want to hear the conversation because I like to get locked into it.
Well, I think that's why people like Terry Gross are so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because you just want to hear her talk to people.
Right. Or like Joe Rogan.
Yeah, exactly. I could listen to them talk to somebody for hours.
Yeah.
Like Mark Maron, too. It's
right,
like,
Mark Maron's great.
They're just having a conversation right now.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm a fly on the wall in this really cool conversation.
Exactly. And I think that's what some of the best podcasts are,
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like you said, you follow, I do too. I mean, whether it's Planet Money, Planet Money is kind of my money-related podcast, This American Life, whatever. It's like kind of American stories.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan's podcast is kind of, I don't even know
whatever.
where to put
I don't
it.
even know where to put that one either.
Yeah, a little bit of MMA and drugs and stand-up comedy.
But he's great.
But then I love that he has people that a lot of people. I mean, even Mark Maron does this too, where they have a lot of really kind of bigger name people on.
Right.
Did you hear the Obama one with Mark Maron?
Good. It was so actually good. It was 2 parts. Oh my god, it's so good.
It's so good.
It's so. I'm an Obama fan anyways.
Sure, yeah.
But I just love being able to hear him. Just kind of down home.
Yeah.
And it was hearing him have a regular conversation with somebody just kind of confirmed the fact that I like him.
Yeah.
And just to hear his stories. He was talking about how he grew up 5 minutes away from Mark Maron. And he was he's in Mark Maron's garage.
In his garage. And they had to bring in
the Secret Service.
And they checked everything out and they gave it the nod of approval.
Yeah.
And then the president rolled up in his black car and then walks into Mark Maron's garage.
What do Mark Maron's neighbors think? Because
Right.
I know he lives in a regular ass neighborhood.
Yeah,
in LA. What are his parents? All of his neighbors they probably just shut down the street.
Probably, yeah. And there was probably a washing machine and a dryer, you know what I mean? And then of course, his
and it's at him, there's some blankets in there or something.
Couple socks,
Right.
No, that's got to be one of my my all-time kind of favorites. There's a few. There's a handful or two of podcasts that really kind of are just the top of the charts. There's the one with Elon Musk on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that.
I have seen that one.
That
is
great.
Wild.
Right. There's that one, the one with Obama and Mark Maron. There's a few other. I also really like the older one, the one with Deadmau5 and Joe Rogan.
I haven't seen that.
That's a good one.
There's a Deadmau5 episode with Joe Rogan?
Yeah. I mean, they got really drunk and there was 5 people on, which he doesn't really do anymore. He just does 3 people max.
Right.
Or, 2 people. But it's still really good. And it's fun and that's what I love about these long form podcasts is you really get to see what this person is like. And where else are you going to see?
Well, I think it gives you some appreciation for them as a person too.
Yes.
Especially with somebody like Deadmau5 too.
Right.
Who's kind of a polarizing figure.
Yep.
But I watched where he drives around.
Cars and Coffee.
Cars and Coffee.
Yeah.
And I like him more because of that. Or watching him on the live stream.
Yeah.
I want to watch somebody's life for just a quick snippet because I want to see who they really are. I'm that interested in you.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I appreciate his live streaming too because he makes no promises. He's just I'm doing this right now. If you want to watch, sure.
That's fine.
Maybe he's in the studio. Maybe there's not even any sound going for 5 minutes.
Sometimes he's in his headphones.
Yeah. Sometimes he's working like a lot of stuff I tap out on where he's working in cinema 4D or whatever 5D or whatever.
Yeah.
One of those graphics programs or something. And I'm kind of I don't even know what he's doing.
I don't know what he's doing.
I don't know what he's doing. And so,
but he's got some moments on there.
Sure. Oh yeah.
For the Veld. When
yes, I saw that
is one of the best moments in dance music, ever. Seeing his face light up when he hears that vocal, and watching him actually reach out to this person, right there,
and
you're just
freak out.
He's that is pure. That is pure him.
Yes,
that's all him.
And thank God it was recording and it was streaming at the time.
Yeah.
Think of all those moments that just go undocumented,
completely undocumented.
Yeah,
that's gonna live on forever.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully.
And it's cool that we get to I feel like that really adds so much to the background of that song too. Well,
I think people feel way more emotional hearing it because they know that there's a backstory involved, and not just know that there's a backstory involved, but they feel like they were a part of that backstory because they were there when it happened.
Yes, yeah. And I like too how he was this is fucking amazing. He's like, some of those vocal effects, they got to go. But this is amazing.
Yeah. You know? No, he gave like, it was such a pure, like a pure moment.
Right.
Like this is you.
Yeah.
I dig that so much.
And that dude's, the vocalist, I can't remember his name, apologize, but his music career is probably forever changed after that.
People are always going to remember him.
Yeah.
I mean, you were that guy?
Right. I mean, he's like, that those vocals are so good. I would put them up there with like someone like Rob Swire or something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
they were fantastic.
They're so good.
They're really good.
Yeah.
And to think he probably recorded those in his bedroom or something.
Yeah, right. I remember the story going something like that. I think that those vocals were, the lyrics were based around a movie that I haven't seen,
right.
I think. But The Velt's a movie, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So I think he wrote the lyrics based around the plot of the movie and then slapped it over the song. And I don't think that that's what the song was called, or Dead Mouse had any intention, but he knew the reference.
Right.
And he heard the lyrics and it went so perfectly. He's like, this
is it right there.
That's it. Yeah. That's something I would like to see in the future. Maybe if someone is looking for like an app idea or something. I know some people there's like Vamper or something where you can like connect with people. I would like to see something that you can put songs of yours up and take submissions, so that someone can download it.
You know what's funny is somebody was just talking about that like yesterday. Wookie
really
was talking about that yesterday on Twitter.
Oh,
really? He just mentioned the exact same thing. He was like, "Why isn't there a place where I can put up my unfinished songs?"
Yeah,
and like let other people finish them, and then I could listen to all the unfinished, the finished versions and be like, "Yeah, that's the one." And now it's a collabo.
Slap both their name on it. And,
and now it's a collabo. And everybody's like, "Oh, that would never work." And I'm like, "No, that's a fantastic idea."
Yeah,
because then you could just be like, "I get to pick the one that's the best."
Exactly. Right.
And and
maybe it works, maybe it doesn't.
Maybe it doesn't, and maybe I meet somebody new that I get to collaborate with later on.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've started kind of doing that. I have a Dropbox folder that just has a bunch of acapellas and stems and stuff, and I'll like send that to people. But I think that would be a really simple website, and I'm hoping that this sparks someone to make it, because I just want to use it. I don't want to make it myself.
Yeah, seriously, I don't want to do that either. I don't know anything about making stuff like that.
No. But like, I feel like it would be a really, like, maybe some easy messaging. I mean, it could practically be like a form or something, but just like, storage for your files.
Yeah.
And then give people access, and
just let it happen.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, then you can, maybe they have like their own SoundCloud thing where you can release your music and stuff or whatever. Maybe bring it to SoundCloud. I don't know, but I don't think that matters. I think
it doesn't.
Someone could easily, like in their bedroom. I mean, you'd have to be able to pay for the bandwidth to host the stuff. But maybe you do Amazon services, and maybe you have to pay for. I would pay money to have that service.
Oh, I would pay money for it too. I think a lot of people would.
That's the hardest thing. I think that's literally the hardest thing is finding people that you actually want to collaborate with.
Yeah. And finishing things.
And how much easier would it be if you were like, I have this thing, try something over it. If it works, it works. And because it's very cut and dry.
Yeah.
It's not like this whole like, oh, I send it to you and send it back, and maybe you never got around to it. And it's like, I think it needs to be kind of just this A and B thing.
Yeah, and like people can just search and be like, oh, I like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me see what I can do with it.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're listening,
somebody do that.
If you're a web developer, do it, please.
Do it, please. People will pay cash money for this.
Yes.
Or at least money in zeros and ones for this.
Right. Well, that's because that's the problem with I think Vamper is it's like this dating app where you have to like reach out to this person, and you have to, and I read people's blogs and they're like, trap producer from LA, and I only make hot beats, and I'm just like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like
I don't want to hate you already before I start writing the song.
Right.
Like, I don't want to know anything about you. I just want to hear the music and be like, hey, I think I might be able to do something with that.
Right.
And maybe I don't.
Right.
And maybe I do.
Yeah,
Let's figure it out together.
Right. And it's just, it'd be cool too if it was like, maybe it's like faceless. Maybe there's just like, it's just the music, just speaks for itself. Yeah.
I think SoundCloud started off that way, trying to be the faceless.
The
faceless thing. Like early days of SoundCloud, it was really interesting because you would just scroll. Like you could go on these discovery journeys forever and ever, and just be like, I don't even know who this guy is from Timbuktu, but his music is awesome.
Yeah. I feel like have you heard of? There's Mixcloud, but they're Mixstep. Mixstep is kind of Mixstep is kind of, it's like a SoundCloud clone, but they're pretty good. They have like a lot of kind of people like that just upload their stuff, and it's like there's barely a profile, but you can just like find stuff. You know? The whole streaming service thing, it just seems to go like this. It's like as SoundCloud gets bigger, you know what I mean? It's like it gets, we're talking about that in the last podcast, is like what, SoundCloud started as the replacement for MySpace Music.
Right.
Then now SoundCloud's kind of getting like oversaturated and some people are over it. So, I mean, it's almost kind of when it's like public utilities. It's like you use it because you kind of have to, but then like also too, like you can't really trust it because so many people have fake followers, and it's like,
it's hard.
It is.
It's hard. And, we've seen like its explosion and it come down and back up again.
Right.
But I still feel like everybody, like SoundCloud is like the website everybody loves to hate to love.
I still love it.
I still love it too.
Yeah,
I can still spend a few hours in SoundCloud just running down the rabbit hole. And I'm being honest with you, if I'm looking for remixes, I want to find a remix of a hot song or like of something that I heard, and I'm like, you know what, I kind of like that, but I would never play it that way. Let me see if there's a cool remix of it.
Right.
I'm going straight to
mashups.
Or mashups. I'm going straight to SoundCloud.
Yeah.
And they've lessened their stranglehold on the distribution side of things. Like people don't get strikes as readily and often anymore. I don't think they do the strike thing, so people's profiles aren't getting taken down. But again, it's a website everybody loves to hate.
Right.
I mean, SoundCloud's awesome, and it's also frustrating.
Yes.
But it's also awesome.
Yeah. I think they were just fighting. They were fighting the fight that someone would have to fight. Yeah. And it happened to fall on them.
Yeah. Well, they were, I think they helped serve us in that middle place between not streaming, between everybody still downloading music and the ubiquity of the streaming platform.
Yeah.
And they kind of helped, let's be honest, they helped dance music get to where it is right now.
For sure.
I mean, if it wasn't for SoundCloud, a lot of our favorite producers probably wouldn't exist.
Yes.
They would not be where they are right now if it wasn't for them. We wouldn't know what their music was.
I found Galantis on SoundCloud.
I found Galantis on
SoundCloud. Before they were big, really.
I discovered Wookie on SoundCloud. A lot, some of my favorite producers, like back in the Electro House days, a lot of my favorite producers, I found them on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
I think I probably first heard of Steve Aoki through SoundCloud.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of people out there that
Before he was throwing cakes.
Before he was throwing cakes.
Yeah.
I don't know. He may have been throwing cakes back then, too. Who knows?
I've been throwing cakes since I was 5 years old. Yeah. Oh, man. So, like, that kind of brings us full circle. Like, something like Dubset is like when SoundCloud fighting this fight with the whole strikes and takedowns and the major labels, the struggle back and forth. Someone like can they come in and provide their service or do they try to keep things separate? I mean,
so the interesting thing about that is actually SoundCloud is somebody who we have an intended partnership with. And you can, even with Apple Music, what we offer is the rights clearance. We partner with streaming services on the other side. Like there's kind of three parts to the business. There's the licensing, and there's the distribution to streaming services, the content creator side.
Yeah.
And essentially what every record label has to do is there's like a digital service offer, and basically that's them saying that it's okay for us to release their music to this streaming service.
Oh, interesting.
So right now we're working with Apple Music, Spotify, and Tidal.
Yeah.
They all have different stipulations of what can be uploaded because our content is different than everybody else's content. Everybody else's content's original content.
Yeah.
Original content.
Well, you have someone like Tidal where people only release on Tidal sometimes.
So we're so for like Apple Music, for example, Apple Music already had a streaming site. They already had a store ahead of time.
Oh, wow.
So like for us to distribute stuff, all we need to do is have the label signed up.
Yeah.
But for Spotify, because they pay publishers for us, they pay publishers for everything.
Oh, interesting.
They pay all the publishers. We don't have to pay publishers on that. But for like Spotify doesn't have that same deal. So it's harder to get stuff on Spotify. But it's opened up this whole new world of things for all of these distributors. Like they can now reroute all of this like remix material through us into the streaming platform. Even like DJ mixes and like DJ mixes before, like licensing a DJ mix before Dubset existed, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
You have to think about like how many, like you want to put 15 songs on a mix.
Right.
That means you better pick out 30.
Right.
Because 15 of those people are going to say no, or they're going to ask for too much money for it.
Yeah.
And you have a budget, and now with all of these licenses that we have, we can just be like, hey, these are all the songs we have. These are all the labels that we work with. Work within that group of people. Right. And you can get your stuff distributed to a streaming service.
Yeah.
And now your mix will live there without getting taken down by the record label because that stuff was done ahead of time. And I think, there's a lot to learn from SoundCloud. Mm-hmm. SoundCloud did an amazing thing.
Yes.
Like they did an absolutely amazing thing for musicians.
Yeah.
And I think every, website after that has or every producer and every DJ has learned something from that model. Right. That's invaluable that we've all taken with us. We're like, okay, well, no, we don't own this music.
Yeah.
No, just because I bought it doesn't mean I can do whatever the hell I want with it.
Right.
Just because I bought it on Beatport doesn't mean I can do whatever the hell I want with it.
Yep.
The record label still owns the music. And also it kind of like brought to this whole idea of like, separating the record label from like people being able to distribute stuff themselves. Because people saw that they could distribute things to themselves and like allowing producers to be like, oh, I can start my own record label and do this on my own. I don't have to follow the label model. I can do this by myself. And like without SoundCloud, that wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Without SoundCloud, nobody would have thought that it was even possible to distribute a DJ mix to a mass group of people without having anything licensed.
Yeah.
Or without having to contact a record company.
Yeah. Or companies.
Yeah. Yeah. Or 50 companies.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, sometimes 2 different companies own the rights to one song.
Well, and good luck getting a hold of like, UMG or Sony Music. Who are you going to email?
Exactly. And these guys are, these are massive companies.
Yeah.
With hundreds of sometimes thousands of record labels that exist under them.
Right.
And they're just faceless monsters of corporations. Like, who do you contact there?
Right.
And unless you're at the highest level, you can't contact somebody.
Yeah.
And now you can release a bootleg remix of a Sony song.
Yep.
If you want. Or you can have Sony and Warner content inside of your mix. And it's all good.
Yeah.
And people don't even realize that these companies actually own some of your favorite record labels.
Yeah,
Like Spinnin' and Big Beat. Those are Warner.
Wow.
Like
just subsets
of Warner. Like Oliver Heldens' label.
Yeah.
Part of Spinnin', part of Warner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Like Martin Garrix's label, Stamped.
Yeah.
Sony.
Wow.
Yeah. So like everybody's starting to fall into this, but like that's the thing is like it's created a whole new ecosystem and kind of leveled the playing field for everybody too.
Yeah.
Because now people, everybody can put out a licensed mix.
Right.
Which wasn't always possible before.
Yeah.
Unless you were doing something that was all yours and all on your record label. Now people can put out a music of the songs that they want to hear and put it out for everybody to hear and have it be legit.
Yeah.
Like not have to worry about strikes and takedowns and losing their SoundCloud account or losing their account or losing their, and if you're first coming out too, it also gives you the opportunity to get like a page on one of these platforms.
Yeah.
Like without, you might be able to get a page before you even release any actual music.
Yeah. Wait, what do you mean a page?
So like, getting like an artist page on Apple Music.
Oh,
you get an artist page on Apple Music is if you actually release something, right?
Right.
And usually you have to do that through a record label.
Yeah.
But, if you're just a DJ and you're starting out and you're DJing and you're learning how to produce at the same time, you can still get your artist page up there.
I mean, that could be millions of pages. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Which is essentially like Spotify.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
not SoundCloud.
Exactly.
So, but like, what about like the really small guys then, like, or people like how you're going to be able to self-release on Spotify?
Right.
I think you already can.
Well, actually, they pulled that back.
Did they really?
Spotify, was it last week or the week before? They decided that they're not going to get into the distribution game.
Oh, shit.
They were just in beta. And then they ended the beta program. They were like, we're not doing it.
Wow.
And
why? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's hard to it's really hard to distribute music.
Yeah.
And Spotify has already got a lot going on.
Right.
They're busy trying to curate and run a company and make a company profitable.
Sure.
Because they don't make any money right now.
Even something like Apple Music, I don't think that they don't even do the. I mean, so if you submit to something like Apple Music, you have to
go through a distributor.
You have to go through a distributor.
You have to go through a distributor,
like CD Baby or
even every record label.
Yeah,
most record labels, like for example, like selling, getting your music on Beatport.
Right.
The only way to do it is to go through a distributor.
Right.
And most labels have their own distributor.
Yeah.
Even for us, most of the labels that come on board with us, they come through a distributor. Or a larger company. There's a small select number of companies that send us their music directly.
Yeah.
But for the most part, everybody's underneath a larger umbrella.
Right.
That helps them get their music out there. That's allowed to have a relationship with the content with the DSPs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I'm partially saddened that they recanted that distribution idea, but I also feel like it might be a good thing, because I was kind of envisioning. I mean, partially why you go to Sound or Spotify is because it's such great content, and
Right.
it's their algorithm is so good for discovery.
Right.
And they're the kind of the letdown is very small, whereas like something like SoundCloud has their play next feature, and
Yeah.
a lot of times they've
It's
gotten
always-
better,
but it's not
the
always
same.
right. No,
Yeah.
it's not even close.
And I mean, and it could just be because you can just upload or whatever. I think maybe their algorithm has gotten better because maybe they take into account plays and that sort of thing, and followers, and maybe they'll not recommend someone that has 2 followers, and because then the quality could take a massive dip, and then it's like, oh, you don't trust the algorithm
Right.
anymore.
I mean, it could have gone one of two ways for them too. I mean, it could have been a really, really great thing for artists, because they were able to get on Spotify directly.
Yeah.
And they were also offering a program, I think, through like CD Baby or TuneCore or something, where they allow you to distribute to other platforms also through that same deal.
Oh, interesting.
But it could also mean like even further oversaturation of the market. And if Spotify is the gatekeeper for their own platform, and they're also distributing music to platform, like what position does that put them in?
Yeah.
As not just the content aggregator, but also the content, like the person who the content is coming in through, like the person who's deciding that this content should be going up. Like they're like, oh, someone's paying me to put the content up, and I'm putting it up on my own platform. It's like, okay, so like there's no line there.
Right.
It's not that like it gets really blurry, and maybe that's what happened. Maybe they're like, maybe it's a little bit too blurry. Maybe it's not something that we should be doing. Maybe we should just let the distributors continue to do that, because that's their business. Yeah,
it was interesting because like the whole idea originally with a record label was there was this kind of like curation of like, hey, this music is so good that we're willing to put our stamp on it, and stamp of approval and some money behind it, and then it goes to this thing, and then that's how But I think you're right. It's just those lines are so gray now.
And they're really, really blurry now. And I mean, let's be honest. There's like almost zero quality control,
right?
At most levels,
even on Beatport. I mean, because anybody can create their own label now,
and anybody can rise to the top if they really, really want to. Right. I mean,
there's almost nothing.
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you. Part of what's soured me on Breakbeat is that there's a huge amount of people that, I mean, like the sales are nil to nothing right now for it, but like people just buy their way to the top because it's so easy.
Oh,
interesting. And like, what's to stop a record label from doing that even in the house section, even where it's a little bit harder, or in techno?
Oh.
Like you could just buy your way to the top.
Yeah.
Like there's no way to stop that. And like,
but what do you mean buy your way to the top?
I just create a bunch of fake accounts and keep buying your own record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay,
it happens.
Yeah, I know.
It happens. Yeah. It happens a lot. I've personally gotten hit up from somebody's manager on Facebook, and they told me to buy their artist track, and they would pay me back for buying the artist track, and I was like, well, let me listen to the track. Be like, I don't even like this song. Why would I do this? Like, no, come on, man, just do it. I'm just help me out. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, why are you reaching out to me for this? Like, what on earth made you think that I was going to help you game the system?
Right. Well, I've heard of the farms, in China and stuff.
Well,
and
they do that for streaming too, like
and Instagram accounts.
Yeah,
and all
I mean
they
do it for. I mean, it's easy to game every system now.
Yeah. See, I guess the weird thing is like, let's just take an Instagram account for instance, right? You can be, let's just say, a pretty chick or a pretty dude, and you can upload photos, and if you pay for followers, maybe you're not great at hashtagging and that sort of thing. And I mean, there is something to be said for, you want that open?
Yes, sir.
There's something to be said too for just getting lost in the sea of people and accounts, right? So maybe you pay your way to get some certain level of notoriety, and then there's this weird thing where you have like a blue check mark next to your name on Twitter, or you have a verified account which you can pay for on Instagram, and it's like this vote of it's a vote of confidence, right. And then people gain traction. Then maybe you do have a bunch of fake accounts, but then you have a bunch of real followers too.
Right.
It's like, It's fucking weird, and I always go back and forth between it. I've never really paid for followers.
I've never done it either, but I can see why somebody would want to.
Yeah.
And, and it's to some degree, maybe it works.
Right.
Like, maybe like the facade of seeing somebody. I mean, I don't know if I support the idea of like hiding how many plays something gets or allowing people to see that, because I feel like I do it too.
Yeah.
I go to someone's Spotify page for the first time, and like I heard one of their songs, and I inevitably look through and I'm like, oh, let me listen to the one that everybody listened to first. And I'm like, why am I doing this? There could be gold at the bottom of this page. Right. I don't know. I should just put it on shuffle play and let's see what happens. But like, I think everybody falls victim to this whole idea. Be like, well, everybody else said it was good, so it's got to be.
Well, it's also,
how could a million people be wrong?
It comes back to the time thing. It's like, if you're trying to find the gold, we've all spent, 6 or 8 hours just trying to put a DJ set together, and you just have you sift through thousands of tracks, and it's like, then you kind of you're like, oh, I'm getting tired, like I'm just gonna. Yeah, this one's got the most plays. It's got,
Yeah, no, I feel it.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, everybody's guilty of going into the Beatport Top 100 and just scrolling through that and just being like, I gotta get like 5 new tracks this weekend. I don't have enough promos to do it. Let me see what's here.
Yeah.
Oh, those are good. All right, let's go.
Right.
It's
and
hard.
then and it's,
so I mean, like if you're buying them, I mean, if it's dope, I guess it's not such a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to admit it, but But I mean, I guess there's some value in that, but it also feels kind of like cheating.
Yeah.
To some degree, but like, we don't even know how many people that we think are production or DJ gods right now have done that.
Right. It could be a lot.
There could be a lot. I mean, there was a point in time when Facebook. You remember on pages you used to be able to see where everybody's followers were, even if you weren't the admin of the page. You used to be able to go and look at like all of the stats.
Oh, that's right.
And people were like, "Why does this person have like 50,000 followers in like Guangzhou, China?
Yeah,
like what's up with that?
What's up with
that? What's up with that?
Right.
You buy a bunch of followers from China? Like what's going on now? Yeah. Like so, I mean,
you can still see a little bit of that. Like you go to someone's, you look at like
you can look at engagement. I mean, you can like,
or all of their names are in like fucking Arabic or something,
right?
Or
Exactly.
Like in Indian. You're like, what?
And I mean, Facebook has done that a little bit now too. Like with the way, like if you pay for advertising on Facebook, I feel like sometimes if you say friends and friends of friends or friends and like people who are interested in this stuff, I feel like sometimes the likes are fake. Even like through Facebook, I feel like they have their own fake accounts that they're like, they paid for it. I'm just gonna throw like 30, 40, 50 of these likes on them. Make them feel good. Look at all these likes they got.
Oh, I really hope that would be so fucked up. That would be borderline fraud. You know what I mean? You're taking money for something to give them.
Almost fraud. Just almost fraud. It's not fraud. Just close.
Yeah, they are followers.
They are.
Yeah, they are real people. Those are real photos.
Those are real photos.
It's a real name
of somebody.
Yeah, of somebody.
Right. It may not be the person whose name it's attached to, but that's definitely the name of somebody.
Right.
In the world.
But hey, you're just trying to get the ANR to be impressed by your 50,000 followers.
We're all playing a numbers game.
Yeah,
I mean that's
the most fucked up part.
That's the most fucked up part. Yeah. That's what everybody's looking at. Like it's like, yes, quality. I feel like quality is almost secondary sometimes to that. Like if you have 50,000 followers, then you're like, all right, let's put you in this category. You are like you're B level,
right? And
you can play here and you can do this and we can let you tour and you can make some money doing this. And it's like, oh, you only have 5,000 followers? Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's going to work, man.
Right.
Like you could open.
Right.
For exposure.
Yeah, for exposure. Oh, those are the golden words in the industry. For exposure.
For exposure. It's good exposure, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Gas money.
Yeah, gas money. That's the best one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everyone's playing the numbers game too. Yeah. And then, like, equally people are like, oh, don't worry about the numbers. And it's like, you say don't worry about the numbers, but everybody's worried about the numbers because that's all that matters now. Yeah. 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 It's fucking weird. And I mean, weird. Sometimes it makes me think, like, even with my own stuff, I'm like, well, maybe if I just, paid to get like but then if it's a bunch of bots, then it doesn't matter anyway. If you could pay to get it really, but then that's what advertising is. Well, I think you could pay to have your stuff advertised through Google. And you could always, I think the best thing to pay for in this day and age is, like, if you can afford it, getting a proper PR company to promote your stuff.
Yes.
Because at least then, like, if you get a good PR company, because there's also a vetting process in that. Like, they're not going to, like, you're going to have to pay them hundreds, maybe $1,000 to get, like, for a campaign. But if you have something that you think is really, really hot, and you can get it into the hands of people, and you're like, okay, I think I can afford to put a little bit of money behind this. And I mean, that's how some of this stuff is rising to the top now, because it's like, hey, it's being promoted.
And sometimes I think too, it's just the lack of eyes. I mean, everything is awash in this ocean of
so much stuff coming out.
Yeah,
I mean, what Spotify said, they're uploading like 10,000 songs a day or something.
Yeah,
that's insanity.
Right.
That's insanity. How there's no way anybody can listen to all that music.
Right.
There's no way to even tell what most of that is, or if any of it's good or if it's bad. There could be amazing music in there that nobody's ever going to hear.
Right.
Because nobody knows that it exists, because the artist doesn't know how to get it to people.
Right. And there's just too many. There's too many people. There's 7 billion on the planet. I would imagine, maybe
at least
10 million are music producers.
Oh, it's more than that.
More than that.
There's got to be way more than that. At least 90% of those people are music producers.
Yeah,
and DJs.
Right. Yeah. Shit, my aunt started producing.
Right? Seriously. My mom just put out a record last week.
Right. Yeah.
It was dope.
Yeah. Oh. It's I don't think there's any answer to this,
No.
At least not right now.
No. And I mean, it's just something that's going to keep going. But I mean, in the end, we're all blessed to be able to find good music in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, we're still able, somehow, in all of this noise and crap, everyone's still able to find some dope music. And everybody is at least once every night that they go out, looks up at the DJ booth and they're like, what are you playing right? What is that one?
Right.
I haven't heard that one.
Yes.
Who is that? What is that?
Right.
Like, it still happens.
Organic reach.
Or
exactly. I think that is that's my answer to it anyways.
Yeah.
I think just organic reach is the best, and not even necessarily paying for Facebook advertisements to put it out there. I think if you really make good content, it might take
15 years.
You know what I mean?
It will. If you keep making dope stuff, the chances are high that somebody is going to notice.
Yeah.
That somebody important enough is going to notice and help you out.
And putting it out there in various places.
Right.
I always talk about this on the podcast. Is I don't. I put this podcast everywhere. I put it. It takes a long time, and I put it on all the major platforms. And it takes a long time, but it ensures that it's readily available. And what I don't do is I don't spam my own Facebook feed.
Right.
I don't hit up people and say, "Hey, check out this thing I made." You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, I think I always say that you're never going to be a king in your own town.
That's true.
You got to get it out there go on forums, go on fucking music forums, go on whatever, and just I remember there's a streamer that I watch, plays video games, Josh OG. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Anyway, he's a funny dude, but he just makes good content. And he went out there, and his kind of how he got started a number of years ago was just going on all these different forums and constantly kind of posting, not annoyingly, but just steadily, even if it was just one upvote or 3 upvotes or whatever. But if you do that long enough,
you start to get some people are noticing.
Yeah, exactly.
You're around.
Yes. Yeah. Which I'm kind of starting to see with this podcast, and I think also too making something that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
If you can make something that stands out a little bit, and that's kind of it's kind of hard to hear a lot of times as a producer or whatever it is you do, because you look up to all these people and you say, I want to make music like that. You know what I mean? I do the same thing.
No, everybody does.
Everybody does.
But you should just make music like you.
Yes.
Yeah. Do it like you. Do it the way you want to do it.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And owning that and just keeping it up. That's the hardest part. I mean, that's where most people fail is, the long-term execution.
Yeah.
And just, everyone says, you just got to keep going. I mean, that Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah.
It was 5-6 years before it gained. I mean, he had a lot of followers, a lot because he was a stand-up comedian.
Right.
Yeah, and lived in LA and had all kind of, But even then, as far as becoming the number one podcast, I think it's the number one podcast. Definitely in America, maybe in the world.
Yeah.
And it's eclipsing even most of the viewerships for late night TV shows and
right.
Super Bowl. Super Bowl would get 5 or 10 million people viewing it, and that was like a big deal.
And it's like we're hitting.
That's
people
one
are getting
episode.
Like 100 million.
Yes.
On one thing.
One YouTube video.
Yeah. Which is insane.
Yeah, right. And of course, it's not all at one time. You know,
Right.
a Justin Bieber song could get, 6 billion views over, a couple of years.
Right.
But it's just, I feel like a lot of that old media stuff is really dying out.
It absolutely is.
And I also, too, I kind of always try to, harp on this fact for people that might think like, oh, there's just so many people out there. Like, what's the point? No, like now is the time. What you don't want to do is 10 years from now be like, oh, that was such a good time. I really should have done X, Y, and Z thing.
Yeah.
Because now we're still in the wild west of the internet.
Oh no, we absolutely are.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And-
Because it's still very much in its infancy when you
Yes.
think about like how long radio and television and moving picture movies
Oh my
have been
God.
around. Like
Yeah.
it's
100
nothing.
years, right.
Yeah, it's nothing.
We've got maybe 10 years of solid internet experience.
Yeah.
The first 10, 20 total.
Right.
First 10 were shaky at best. It was cat photos and weird
and dancing
fucking,
babies.
Yeah, dancing babies and weird glittered MySpaces and
Yeah.
it's like now I feel like things have really kind of, it's almost like the Web 2.0, which was a very soft launch for Web 2.0, which is very gradual. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
absolutely.
But we're not to Web 3.0 yet, whatever that is.
I don't know what that's going to be either.
No.
We're living inside of the internet or something.
Yeah, right. It's definitely coming.
No, absolutely.
It's on its way.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
But I mean, that's why I love doing this. I love doing this podcast because I love to just sit down with people that we literally exchanged a couple of messages back and forth, and here we've had this great conversation.
Exactly. Well,
You know
I think
what
that's what's great about like having access to this kind of all of this stuff right now.
Yeah.
Is that we're all able to like be part of this too.
Right.
Like everybody, and the fact that we're able to like we were connected through a mutual friend.
Yeah.
And think about how hard something like that was.
Oh my
Even
God.
10 years ago,
Right.
like MySpace messaging was not the business.
No, I mean I did get a couple of dates through MySpace messaging.
All right. I mean, or like instant messaging when that was like, I mean, like it's
Yeah.
just amazing that we have this reach
Yes.
right now where we can reach out to each other this quickly and then facilitate something like this.
Right.
We're like, all right, yeah, let's go. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah. I don't even know how I would live my life without my, iPhone calendar and Facebook Messenger.
No, me either.
I mean,
be really, really hard.
Email's very important, but I feel like
No, I feel like actually Facebook Messenger is one of the most important things that I have because there's
Yeah.
a lot of friends that I have
Yeah.
that live in far-flung places, and even some of the ones that live like just 10 or 15 miles from me that I may
Right.
not see all the time.
Right.
That's how I talk to them.
it's free text messaging.
It
I
is.
mean, text
I think
messaging
it's free-ish.
free-ish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you pay with
Yeah.
your information, but
Right. It's okay. Everybody already has all my information.
yeah, exactly right.
Like that's
I'm
why-
not in anything really weird.
No,
not that
but
weird.
not that weird.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like garden variety weird.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 I mean, like they've got this whole face app thing, and everybody's like, but they're taking your information. Be like,
Right.
dude, they already have your information.
Right. You think they don't
They've
have
had it
10,000 photos
forever.
of you? Yeah.
You've been taking selfies for the last 10 years.
Right, right.
Of and pictures of your food.
Yeah. Congratulations.
yeah,
Now they know what you're going to look like when you're 60.
Exactly. You're still going to like the same dish because
Right.
you took 10 different pictures of
Right.
it. They know that too.
Right. Yeah, I tend to not really subscribe to the whole, Black Mirror like fear mongering type it's like
Yeah, shit may get a little weird sometimes, but hey, I like my life with all the things.
Yeah.
I do. I think technology is fabulous.
We're so productive with all the things.
Yeah.
So fucking productive.
And there's some that say we're not as connected as before, but I definitely feel like I've made more connections and lots of meaningful ones because of this.
Yeah, I think it's how much you put in.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's about, the type of person you are. Like,
Right.
really, what are you going to do with this?
Yeah.
And, maybe you feel less connected because you wouldn't have felt connected anyways,
Right.
regardless of whether this was here or not.
Yeah.
That's all up to the individual.
Right. And, it's not a bad thing to be a homebody.
No, it's
and
not.
to be an introvert,
No, it's not.
I'm very much an introvert too. And I mean, I go through these periods where I kind of like, if I've got like a lot going on or I'm sick or I've, hurt or something, like I just kind of I shrivel up a little bit and I'm like, oh God, I got like 10 messages of people wanting to talk and like,
it happens. I do the same.
emails and all this stuff. And it's like, you just want to.
Everybody kind of wants to wants to curl up into a ball sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
It's overwhelming. Yeah.
It is over. I mean,
Right.
that's the thing that we battle with too. Is that like it's overwhelming sometimes having all of this barrage of things.
And anybody, it's not just like we went from, especially like you and I growing up with pre-internet,
right?
When someone had to like leave a voicemail that you might listen to that night, maybe the next day. It was like it was very disjoint and wait, right? And now like there's just so many forms of immediate contact.
Yeah,
you have 10 different ones.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And everybody's like, I know you got that text message,
right?
Because your phone's right there.
I know you're looking at it. Like, use it for everything.
Well, I think we all have to, knowing that all this, I think we have to allow everybody the space to not respond.
Yes.
Or to not want to be in contact.
Sure.
Or to be like, I'm going through a thing right now, and that thing is not the thing that I want to deal with right now. And that's okay too. Like, I think it's, I hate to quote Spider-Man, but, great responsibility, like having all of this, being so fully connected to each other.
Yeah.
We also have to be willing to be really forgiving of each other.
Right.
When we're not like, I did see that message.
Yeah.
I saw it. I'm probably going to respond to it eventually, but it may not be today or tomorrow because I just don't feel like it, and that's okay too.
I don't even blame people.
No, I don't either.
You see the
like
read receipt.
No, if I see the read receipt, I'm just like, oh, that's cool. At least they saw it.
Sure.
They read my message.
Yeah.
If they get right back to me, that's cool. If they don't get back to me for another 6 months, that's cool too. I'm not gonna write you off as a person. I still like you.
Yeah,
but
exactly. Yeah.
You just have something else going on in your life right now that's more important than my message about, hey, listen to my song, or hey, what did you have for breakfast yesterday? Like,
right. Yeah.
That's cool.
Or they, might have swiped it while they were driving and were like, that's not a good idea.
It happens to me too.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
And you just may have forgotten.
Yeah, right.
That it happened. It happens to me all the time. I'm like, I completely forgot about this message.
Right.
Oh, shit. Maybe I should talk to that person.
Yeah. It's a good time to be alive.
It is.
Yeah.
I can't complain.
Right.
Or I could, but I don't want to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I enjoy all the technologies and all the things.
I do.
And if you're listening, app developer, make that thing that we were talking about.
Please.
Because I would like it.
I need it.
Cool, man. Well, we're at almost 2 hours here. I think we should maybe wrap this up.
That happened fast.
Yeah, it goes fast, right? And then my back is like a timer. It's like I can tell how long we've gone based on how sore my back gets. So that's going to be the first thing that changes about this podcast is getting better seating arrangements.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to be like fully laid back because then we'll get sleepy. But something in between where I can lean back a little bit.
No lazy boys?
No lazy boys.
All right.
Maybe lazy boys.
Maybe a lazy boys.
Yeah, but it's got to be in the right setting.
Yeah. You just can't go all the way. No full reclining.
Upright only.
Upright lazy boys.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Cool, man. Well, you got anything you want to plug or SoundCloud?
Check
websites?
my SoundCloud out.
Yeah.
It's soundcloud.com/SYCHOSIS.
Nice. Alex
Sychosis.
Yep.
And that's where my music is. Follow me on all the social medias.
Yeah.
That's also, they're all at SYCHOSIS.
Yeah.
Say what's up, guys.
Yeah. And
thanks for having me out.
Check out Dubset Media and all that.
Please do. If you want to get bootleg remixes out there, you want to get a DJ mix up, hit up Dubset Media. You can sign up there, or you can send me a message on any of those social media platforms and ask questions about it.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to answer. My job is to work with DJs.
Nice.
And producers. That's what I do. So
at the very least, check it out just because it's a pretty monumental thing in the industry. You know what I mean? It's a big deal.
Yeah. And if you haven't heard of it, or you've been thinking about hearing about it, or you visited before and you uploaded content before, please go back and check it out again because it's changing all the time and it's getting better.
Yep. I love it. Cool. Well, this has been episode number 26. I got to look at the number now because we're getting up there with Alex Diaz, Alex Sychosis.
Yes.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
Absolutely. And I feel like we'll do this again soon.
Yeah.
Because I could just talk about this shit forever.
Same here.
Yeah.
I just got started.
Right, yeah. Cool. Well, again, we're here at Halcyon in San Francisco, and I got to thank Gina, Rhea, Leah, and JoJo for letting us host here. My name's Scott Brio, and if you want to check out all of the other episodes, we're on every major streaming platform pretty much. So just Google it, Voice of Electronic Music, and we will see you guys on the next one.
Peace.
Peace out.